Oh, it's been a long few weeks, but Formula One is back in business. 2 race cancellations mean we haven't had a Grand Prix in April. The month of May has arrived and the travelling circus moves once more and pitches up here in Miami. It's round 4 of the Formula One World Championship. You're listening to 5 Live F1, and over the next half an hour we'll be looking at all the latest stories from the paddock and building up to sprint qualifying, which will get going in just under half an hour's time. But it's good to be back. But Jolyon Palmer, former Renault Formula One driver, 5 weeks off, no work to do. You've been living the absolute dream.
I've been living a very nice life for the last month, but I am pleased that we're back, and we're back with, I think, quite an interesting weekend in store for us. Loads of upgrades on cars and tweaks to the regs, and I'm back on the BBC for a very short little snippet. It's great to chat to you, Harry. Looking forward to this.
What a pleasure it is to have Palmer in the box on his way to that other commentary box. Also with us, as always, is the BBC's F1 correspondent, Andrew Benson. You've been busier than ever and loving every second.
I've been busy, Harry, that's for sure. It's a busy weekend. There's lots going on, lots of talk about the current rules, the new rules, the future rules, etc., etc. But for here, we're on air to talk about sprint qualifying, which is coming up. First of 4 competitive sessions this weekend.
Indeed. Okay, over the course of the next hour, we'll also be bringing you updates from Leeds United v Burnley in the Premier League. So too for the Rugby League, with Leeds Rhinos v Wakefield Trinity in the Super League. Commentary of that is over on Sports Extra, and we'll head to the Crucible for the semi-finals of the Snooker World Championship as Sean Murphy takes on John Higgins. Meanwhile, we are positioned in the commentary box, which overlooks the final corner and the pit lane entry, but our eyes and ears on the ground somewhere around the Miami Dolphins NFL Stadium is Jenny Gow. Good afternoon, Jen.
Good afternoon, Harry. I'm in the centre of the stadium. This is where some of the biggest events happen, some of the biggest sporting events happen, and right now under my feet is AstroTurf, around the 65,000 seats. Dotted some spectators, but most of them are out getting the view of this amazing track, and what an event this is. The sun is beating down. George Russell just to my right, wearing purple uniform clothes with a pink cap, being followed around by a scantily clad woman. Who knows? Only in Miami, I suppose you would say, but it's hot enough for it though. 33 degrees. It is baking here, and I don't envy the drivers from getting into their cockpit for an hour.
No, not at all. It is baking. Here's a challenge for you, Jenny, over the next 20 minutes or so. There's a lot of Formula One World Champions hanging about this place. See how many you can nab for us. How does that sound?
Okay, I'll give it a go. I love a challenge. You know me. So there we go. I'm on the hunt already.
Thanks, Jen. Right, as we say, we'll be building up to sprint qualifying, but we have had this unplanned break, a spring break almost in the Formula One calendar. Is anyone going to have benefited massively from that, Palmer?
I expect so. It's a good time for everyone to be developing parts for the cars. They've already been doing this from the start of the season. But yeah, a bit of time off gives them time to finesse parts. And I think plenty of teams were already eyeing Miami as a chance to bring upgrades anyway. And really, I'm looking at Mercedes rivals, which are predominantly Ferrari and McLaren right now. Red Bull have also got a raft of upgrades on the cars. And earlier on, we had a 90-minute practice session, and the rivals look pretty good. So loads of new parts across the board, front, underneath, on the top, at the back. Literally everything is new on most of the rivals of Mercedes cars. Mercedes haven't bought a huge amount of upgrades here. They've barely bought anything. So we're hoping this is going to be pretty close, Harry.
Let's hope so. But Mercedes were the dominant force after the first 3 races. Kimi Antonelli leading the Drivers' Championship after winning out in Suzuka. George Russell down in second. So they've had a bit of time to think about these opening races that we've had. Reset going into this almost start of the season again after the 5-week gap. How do you think that's going to weigh on their mentality? You've got the young buck in Kimi Antonelli, who looks like he's finally found his rhythm, and that core talent that we always were promised by Toto Wolff is now starting to be delivered week in, week out. But you've got, I suppose now, the old experienced hand of George Russell. Is he going to be starting to quake in his boots, looking over his shoulder? How do you weigh that battle up?
I don't think he's quaking in his boots just yet. I think he's still the title favourite. Everyone has been surprised how well Antonelli's done so far this season. But there's been very small details that have kind of gone his way so far. Russell, still most people would say, is the championship favourite. Mercedes have the best car. even if they don't have upgrades here, they will soon upgrade their car, probably at the next race in Montreal, and hope to maintain a gap of sorts at the front, which will give either George or Kimi a golden shot to win. And I still just think that George has the confidence, and he's been a little bit unlucky. He's still very close, but this is a good track inherently for Antonelli.
Right, goal at Leeds. Let's head to Rob Law.
And it's a big one. Leeds 2, Burnley 0. Beautiful work down the right-hand side by Dominic Calvert-Lewin. A back heel into space for Bogle to deliver the cross. And then arriving at the back post to sweep the ball in was Noah Okafor. A goal that will move them 9 points clear, if it stays like this, of the relegation zone in the fight to avoid the drop. It's Leeds 2, Burnley 0.
Thanks, Rob. Right, Andrew, were you chomping at the bit there to come in?
Well, I was told to come in, so yes, right. I was a little bit. But no, look, I think Jolyon's right. We've had 3 races, so it is a representative sample in that sense, but in a way it's not representative. Russell's still on average quicker than Antonelli. He's had some bad luck, as Jolyon said. He had a technical problem in China qualifying, otherwise he would have been on pole there and therefore probably would have won the race. In Japan, another technical problem in qualifying, and then he got very unlucky with the safety car in the race, which basically gifted the victory to Antonelli. So we could be looking at 3 Russell victories and we'd be having a completely different conversation. That's not to say he's dominating Antonelli, he's not. The other factor is that Mercedes have had a significant performance advantage so far. So even when they've made bad starts, and Ferrari have always made better starts than them, but more to the point, Antonelli has always made worse starts than Russell and fallen back further. He's not been punished because he's been able to come back through the field. If McLaren and Ferrari have succeeded in closing the gap on Mercedes, it's going to be even harder for a Mercedes driver to come back from that sort of error. And let's not forget that Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, he very nearly won in Japan if it hadn't been for the safety car. So if they can get closer to Mercedes, it really could become a competition between more than just between 2 drivers from one team.
And also in that way, these early races are quite important because you can build up a bit of a buffer, but there'll be a time when Ferrari and McLaren could take more points off a Russell or an Antonelli. So Russell not getting on the podium in Japan, he was a bit unlucky. He also didn't make the best job of it and was struggling a little bit through the weekend in terms of pace. But with that car, he should have at least been in second place, but he lost unnecessary points. That sort of result will become more likely as we get through the season. Ferrari and McLaren may be closing, maybe there this weekend in terms of pace. So yeah, as Andrew says, the small differences that you're getting between them could become bigger, and the points differences that are usually sort of 7 either way for first or second could become 10 for a race. They could be 15 for a race, and then we'll see bigger swings. And if Russell can get on top of it, if Antonelli can find more consistency as well and keep the run going, then we'll see, I think, a bigger title role.
I think from Russell's point of view, he came in as a championship favourite. He's just got to stay calm. He's doing a good job of appearing to stay calm.
He looks calm, doesn't he?
Yeah, and he's saying all the right things about all the things that, leading sportsmen say when they're competing at the very top, about, focusing on the method. It's because the method is going to get you to the end goal. Don't focus on the end goal because that's going to distract you. But it's one thing to be saying, it's another thing to know what's actually going on in his head. This is his first big championship chance. He was waiting for it 4 years ago when he first came to Mercedes. Now it's come. I guess he was probably hoping for a slightly smoother run at the start of the season.
But the parallels are really obvious between Russell and Norris last year, aren't they? Where you had Norris and Piastri with a gilt-edged chance to become champion. In the end, Norris managed it, but it was by hook and by crook. And Norris was the title favourite in the pre-season, won the first race, and then the wheels started to come off a little bit in the next run of races, which is a little bit like where we've been at with Russell. Looked dominant, set the pace in testing, won the first race from pole, and then Antonelli suddenly is like, hang on, this guy can contend. But Norris looked like a man that was under a bit more pressure early on, whereas I still look at Russell, he's still exuding confidence, and I think he's in a sort of a different headspace compared to Lando, who ended up turning it round in the long run. Again, an illustration of how long this season is. But I still feel like Russell has the swagger of a man that thinks he can be champion.
More on that in a moment, but more action at Ellen Road. Leeds United v Burnley. Rob Law.
and leads 3-0 up now against Burnley. They are swarming all over the visitors, who have completely collapsed. Outanaka's shot from outside of the area was spilled by Dubravka, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin was on hand to stab the ball home, his first from open play since February. Ellen Road is standing loud and proud and serenading their players. They think they are moving 9 points clear of the bottom three. It's Leeds 3, Burnley 0.
Right, the meter's run out on Jolyon Palmer. We've got to say goodbye to you. I mean, just such a pleasure to have you back on 5 Live. Was it as much of a pleasure for you, Jolyon?
More than I had anticipated, Harry. What a joy to be back with you guys. Thanks for having me, and enjoy the session. Lovely stuff. You too. Enjoy. You have a couple of commentary boxes down, so we'll say goodbye to you as you go off and do your telly thing, and we'll swap you out for Rebecca Clancy in a few moments' time. Whilst we do that, Jenny Gow, I believe I sent you a World Championship challenge. How have you got on?
I think I've got on fairly well. 1996, when we...
1896.
Not 1896, I'm pretty sure 1996. I was right first time. 1996. Can you remember who was world champion? Obviously I can't, Harry, but who was world champion that year?
Oh, I think it might have been 5 Live's Damon Hill.
Well, just guess who it is that's joining me.
Yeah, it's me, Harry. I'm here 30 years ago. We keep talking about this event that took place 30 years ago, and I don't like to think, you know, how 30 years has gone by. But anyway, I'm still here. I'm working on my swagger.
You're looking so good, though. Look at this. It's like almost Hawaiian
They
shirt.
can't see, it's radio.
I know, but describe
Jenny,
it for us.
I'm wearing suitable Miami gear. I got a white T-shirt and a shirt with palm trees on it. So
and little sailboats and mountains. You've got the vibe going on.
well, it's hot. You have to wear loose-fitting clothes, don't you?
Absolutely. It's very hot. 33 degrees at the moment. The sun is beating down. They're kind of under the car park tunnels, which is a weird place to stand, but actually it's great because this feels like the players walk through, because the drivers are coming from their hospitality units and getting into the cars. Max Verstappen's just walked past us from Red Bull, Isaac Hadjar, Lando Norris as well. This is all set up really nicely, an hour and a half practice earlier on, but who do you think is in prime with pace today?
It does look pretty similar to the way it was before we left it. I haven't.
No, Damon. It's all different, isn't it?
Well, I mean, the absolute numbers might have changed, but the order it appears very similar. You can't tell from a free practice session. You know, this is why we have qualifying sessions, real events. I just pulled my
Don't worry, producer Joe will plug you back in so you can hear yourself.
I'm waving my arms around too much. But so yeah, we have qualifying sessions for the very purpose of finding out what the true form is, and we're going to find out fairly soon.
Damon, I've just got one question for you before we let you go. We've just been chatting in the box about the mentality between the two Mercedes drivers who up until this point have been the ones fighting for, up front for the wins. Kimi Antonelli leads the championship. He's the young buck. George Russell, well, he's the old guard, the experienced driver, finally gets a car that's capable of winning a world championship. How do you think George Russell is feeling about having this fast-charging Kimi Antonelli next to him, especially after this long break, where now Russell is on the back foot, now second in the championship?
Well, it seems like only yesterday that George was the challenger to superstar driver Lewis Hamilton in the team, and so now he knows how quickly things move on in Formula One, because he's the, as you described him, he's the old hand, you know, and they've got this young 19-year-old who now has got thoughts of greatness, you know, and he's every right to have those thoughts because he's leading the World Championship. So a little bit of an upset, a little bit of a pressure there within the team.
Andrea Stella, Harry, has just walked past us in the McLaren uniforms. He is a man who would hope, as team principal, that his team will turn it around like they did last year and the year before here in Miami. They'll be hoping to be resurgent and bring the fight back to George Russell.
Absolutely. All right, thanks, Jem. We'll catch up with you in a few moments' time. Thank you very much, Damon Hill, who will be with us on 5 Live on Saturday and Sunday for commentary of the sprint race, Grand Prix qualifying, and, of course, the race on Sunday right here on 5 Live. Right, Rebecca Clancy, F1 journalist, has subbed in next to me. Welcome back to the commentary box, Rebecca.
Thank you very much for having me.
Surviving the heat?
You just about. I mean, I'm surviving the heat and trying to survive the air conditioning.
I will take the air conditioning every day of the week, that's for sure. One of the things that I suppose has come out of this gap is a little bit of uncertainty still over where we're at with the Formula One calendar, because this gap has come about because of the conflict in the Middle East. We saw Bahrain and Saudi Arabia fall by the wayside and be cancelled. We still have Middle Eastern races scheduled towards the end of the year, Qatar and the season finale in Abu Dhabi, but even closer to home we had the likes of Azerbaijan coming up in June, and there are some question marks over that still the closer we get to it. So where do you think this leaves us at the moment?
Yes, you're absolutely right. We have 22 races confirmed on the calendar, 4 now, with 2 having dropped off. Actually, a lot of the chatter that I'm hearing at the moment is about getting Saudi Arabia back onto the calendar as potentially the penultimate race. So they would be moving Abu Dhabi back, and then it would be a quadruple header. Absolutely nothing has been done in terms of a conversation, and of course conversations are happening. There's also been conversations about putting Bahrain in between Azerbaijan and Singapore. I think that's even less likely to happen than the Saudi race coming back in as the penultimate one. But you're absolutely right, there's a lot of uncertainty about this calendar. The conflict is still going on. They talk about ceasefires and then they don't last very long, and there's a lot of uncertainty. Formula One, I can absolutely guarantee you, will do what's in the interest of the safety for everybody. So if we don't go racing there, then that's just the way it is. It's unfortunate, but there are obviously more important things going on in the world. But then you have the situation coming back to Formula One where I'm sure Mercedes probably didn't want this break. Jolyon was talking about it then. That they have all the momentum. They haven't actually brought that many upgrades here. I don't know what they've been doing with their break. But they had all of the momentum coming into this, and we can see just from FP1, 90 minutes, not massively indicative, but possibly more than other ones, and the rivals seem to have caught them up. So more gaps in the calendar later on. It does hurt momentum, but Andrew's talked about it a lot, a bit of luck here and there. It's part of the sport, so who knows at the moment.
Well, let's head back to Ellen Road. Leeds United v Burnley. Rob Law.
Leeds 3, Burnley 0, no doubt about the result here. Leeds are taking a huge step towards Premier League safety. Anton Stack with the goal in the first half, then 2 in 4 minutes following the break. Noah Okafor with his 4th in as many games before Dominic Calvert-Lewin added their 3rd. Leeds 3, Burnley 0 with 65 minutes on the clock.
So uncertainty over the Formula One calendar. One of the other big things coming into this year, we've been talking about it non-stop and we'll come into it, but let's head down to the Rugby League. Leeds Rhinos v Wakefield Trinity. Matt Newsom.
Yeah, it's Leeds Rhinos 22, Wakefield at 12. It's been a game punctuated by injuries. Cam Scott went off early doors, and Oliver Pratt's the latest to be going off for a head injury assessment. 2 tries for Mike Asibo, 1 for Callum Watkins, and Leeds' 4-column. Ollie Pratt and Trey Lalicio for Wakefield. Leeds still down to 12 with Mike Asibo in the sin bin. Leeds 22, Wakefield 12.
And it's the semi-finals in the Snooker World Championship. Sean Murphy v John Higgins. Let's head to the Crucible with Jamie Broughton.
Yeah, 2 great matches, 2 great players, I should say here. The 4-time champion John Higgins, as you say, taking on the 2005 winner Sean Murphy. They've resumed tonight, tied at 8 frames all. They've shared the opening 4 frames. Both men have scored well when they've got chances, so it's now tied at 10 frames all. 17 is the target for victory.
Jamie Broughton. Apologies, Jamie, for that. So updates from the Crucible. We'll continue with updates from Super League and that Premier League game, Leeds United v Burnley, throughout the course of this show. This is 5 Live F1. We're building up to qualifying for the sprint. We're in Miami, based around the Miami Dolphins NFL Stadium. The sun is out. It is baking hot, and the drivers are doing up their fire suits. Max Verstappen with the balaclava on his head as he now slides over his Red Bull helmet on top with the hands device linking around his neck before he gets into the car. One of the things that has been the talk of the town since Formula One started this year was the huge overhaul with the car and the engine regulations. There's been a tweak coming into this weekend as well, Beck, and essentially it's very easy to get bogged down in it, but one of the main things is drivers being able to recover less energy, particularly in qualifying, so they won't be having to lift off as much, because that's one of the main, I think, issues that people have had so far with this new Formula One that we're seeing, is for an out-and-out racer, it doesn't feel like that. It's not foot to the floor.
No, it's not natural for them, that's for sure. before the tweaks, and I'm still a little bit now, but not as much. Before the tweaks, they were lifting to go faster, which doesn't make any sense to anybody, let alone the racing drivers who have spent their entire life with their foot to the floor as much as humanly possible. They have made these tweaks. I spoke to Graham Loudon, the Cadillac F1 team principal, during the break, and I asked him to explain the tweaks for the layman, let's say. And he laughed and said, absolutely not a chance. That I've got an engineering degree and I could talk to you for hours about the tweaks. It's like, that's how complicated they are. So I'm not even going to pretend that I'm an engineer, and I'm not going to try and explain it too much. But as you say, they're not lifting as much, they're not harvesting as much. There's not a lot they could actually do. Max Verstappen described it as they had tickled the regulations, and I'm not sure what else they could have done, really, because these engines are 50-50. You've got the internal combustion and then the electric component. And a lot of the engine manufacturers have come into the sport. I'm talking about Audi, Ford. They were at Cadillac. They were attracted by almost the sustainability of these engines. And you can't just then turn around after 3 races and say, oh, do you know that multi-million-dollar agreements that we have in place and why you came into the sport in the first place? We're just going to tear it up because the drivers don't like it. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen. The drivers have a lot of power, not that much power. So it's a bit of a tricky one. Everyone's slightly treading on eggshells, it feels, about it at the moment. I feel like the race, and actually we'll get a good example of it now, because qualifying has been where the problems are, because that's where they're really struggling, because that's obviously where they're absolutely at the limit, not maybe so much during the race. So we'll get a really good example in the next, where are we now, sort of 10 or so minutes when sprint qualifying gets underway.
Certainly will. This will be a really intriguing session for that alone. But there's a couple other things. There's some better warning systems through improved light signals on the back of the car with the rear lights flashing. There's a new system to help drivers recover if they get a bad launch at the start, because one of the main things we've been seeing is a huge disparity in launches off the line, which can lead to, had led to some very near misses, some close calls, which could have been some big crashes. So the FIA, the sports governing body, have said nobody gets a sporting advantage on that front. It is only in the interest of safety, and also the boost button has been limited in certain aspects. That's when drivers can press the button, get absolute maximum power from the engine and the battery. One of the reasons that has been limited is closing speeds and how that can lead to potential incidents. We saw Oliver Behrman have a big crash in Japan, avoiding a harvesting Franco Colapinto, who was saving energy and driving rather slowly, slower than was predicted, and that led to a big crash. Not the sole reason, but one of the main reasons that's led to this tweak of the regulations. Right, we are just a few moments away then from getting the green light on at the end of the pit lane for sprint qualifying. So let's check back in with Jenny.
Yes, I come around to the back of the garages, which is the other part of the paddock, and it's a frenzy, and it feels alive at the moment. Loads of fans have got a path and they're poured in here. From Pablo Montoya is just walking past me. I don't know if I can dip in. No, he's got his earpieces in, so he's probably busy with someone else. But the sun is shining down. There are some clouds out there that just can get as a block in between the sun and me, which is quite good at the moment because I am melting. I don't know what it must be like in the cars, but I think everyone is in anticipation for this session that gets underway very shortly.
That's the voice of Jenny Gow. Up in the comments box is myself, Harry Benjamin, joined by F1 journalist Rebecca Clancy and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Sprint qualifying then just a few moments away, and Andrew, quite exciting. We're about to get our first glimpse of qualifying with these newly tweaked rules.
Yeah, I mean, a tickle, as Beck said, is what Verstappen said. That's basically what it is. Laurent Mekies, his team boss, described it to me last week as about 20% of the way to where they want to be, which is returning race driving to what racing driving is meant to be, which is going as fast as you can for as long as you possibly can, and then going around the corner as fast as you can, having braked at the latest possible point. They're not there at this stage because of the requirements for energy recovery. What they've done is they've reduced the amount of total energy, as Beck says, and they've reduced the methods, or changed the methods of recovering the energy. So we're still going to hear these drop-offs in speed towards the end of straights as the engines turn to recovery mode. But for the drivers, it'll feel a bit more natural. I don't think the audience are going to see any difference at all, to be honest with you. And that's been Stefano Domenicali, the F1 president's argument, basically, that the audience love the new Formula One in terms of the racing. And if you don't really know what you're looking at and you don't really understand the complexities of the technicalities, you're not really going to see the difference.
Another goal at Leeds. Let's head to Ellen Road. Rob Law.
Leeds 3, Burnley 1. You'd think it would just be a consolation goal, but Chauner has one back for the visitors. It comes moments after Burnley came close to another. VAR ruled it out though, because at the back post Lucas Pires was judged to have strayed beyond the last defender before stabbing the ball in. It's Leeds 3, it's Burnley 1 with 72 on the clock.
Welcome back to Miami ahead of the second sprint of the season. We're about to get sprint qualifying underway in this 5th season of sprints since they were introduced in Formula One. There are 6 sprint events this year. We've had the first back in China, Miami playing host to the second of it, and it means a slightly different format to the usual weekend. So sprint qualifying about to happen right now on the Friday, following just the one free practice session, which was extended to 90 minutes from an hour usually. That's specific to this event because of the long break that we had that was unscheduled. Then essentially the sprint on Saturday morning, a 100-kilometre dash, no mandatory pit stops. That takes place ahead of Grand Prix qualifying as normal, with the Grand Prix remaining on Sunday, unaffected by any of the sprint results. And the clock already on, the green light is on. Not a massive rush out into the Miami International Autodrome. SQ1, this first session, just 12 minutes in length, already down to 11 and a half. Then we'll have SQ2 and SQ3, and we'll set the grid and knock out cars as we go. As looks like one of the Racing Bulls in yellow is about to be led out into the pit lane along with a flurry of cars. Jenny Gow.
Yes, the grandstand, you'll be relieved to know, are now more full. They're filling up as we speak, and it looks amazing. So many people and so many different merchandise. They're supporting so many different teams, and they're all cheering on their specific driver or team. This is going to be amazing.
Certainly will be. Right, let's bring you up to speed with how the standings lie ahead of this. Kimi Antonelli does indeed lead the Drivers' Championship, 72 points to his name. He is 9 clear of George Russell. Charles Leclerc is 3rd ahead of Lewis Hamilton, with Lando Norris rounding out the top 5. Over in the Constructors, it is Mercedes who lead the way after 3 rounds, 135 points to their name, 45 clear of Ferrari. McLaren in 3rd. Hassan Alpine, the top 5, with Red Bull down in 5th, I should say. Haas 4th, then Red Bull, I'll do that again. Alpine 5th, then it's Red Bull down in 6th, ahead of Racing Bulls, Audi and Williams, the last of the scorers, with Cadillac and Aston Martin bringing up the rear of the field with the 11 teams in Formula One, as this is the sound of cars queuing up in the pit lane, getting ready to be unleashed onto this circuit. Just over 5.4 kilometres in length, 3.3 miles, 19 turns, 12 that bend to the left, 7 that head to the right, essentially taking place in an old car parking lot around the Miami Dolphins NFL Stadium. It's a unique track, Beck. It's a unique place.
It is a very unique track and place, you're absolutely right. I'm not sure many locals would consider it to actually be in Miami, but we'll brush over that. I mean, one of the upsides of having it at the Hard Rock Stadium is that they own all of the land, so they can pretty much do whatever they want. And we've seen lots of things happening here. I mean, Jen was talking there about all of the fans that are here. It is, I think, a sellout for the weekend, or that's certainly what they're telling us. But it's a lot of fun, this track. It doesn't normally, and I don't want to be too negative, so I'll say it very quickly, it doesn't normally lend itself to great racing, but with the threat of rain and actually lightning as well on Sunday, it's going to be a very interesting weekend.
Let's hope it is. 9 minutes and 14 seconds of SQ1. The slowest 6 cars at the end of these 9 minutes will be eliminated, and there's already a close call between the 2 Mercedes cars, Kimi Antonelli and George Russell. Bit of confusion there over who was being released first from the garage. Antonelli suddenly having to stamp on the brakes, as it was Russell who then swept around the outside. No harm done there between the 2 Mercedes drivers, but out on track then, and after FP1 it was Charles Leclerc who was quickest, Max Verstappen in 2nd, Oscar Piastri was 3rd. So you had Ferrari, you had Red Bull, you had McLaren all ahead of Mercedes, but it is only practice, and now we'll see what they've got. Everybody out there on a set of medium tyres, and Oscar Piastri now, having started a Grand Prix in Japan, his first start of the year, crashed out at his home race in Australia, didn't even make the start of it, crashed out on the way to the grid. Technical issues kept him from starting the Chinese Grand Prix, and then he managed to start in Japan, and he managed to get a podium for it. and even a fight for victory too. What can Piastri and what can Norris deliver this weekend? Norris, of course, happy hunting ground for him, Beck.
Very happy hunting ground. The scene of his first victory 2 years ago. He does love this place. I mean, he's a 20-something reigning F1 world champion. What's not to love?
26.
Yes, 26.
Years of age.
Is he 26? Is that it?
Yeah.
Crikey, O'Reilly, making me feel old. Thanks. That's very impressive. Well, he's probably having even more fun. Although not particularly on track, it has to have been said. It hasn't been a great start to the season. Also, Norris not starting races as well. He probably wasn't too happy to see his teammate on the podium in Japan, although I'm sure he'll tell you otherwise. But it's not the start to the season that McLaren were looking for. It's absolutely not the way that they thought it was going to go. They haven't come out fighting like we expected. I think they'll be big winners from this break because they have a fantastic facility back at MTC in Woking. They have a brilliant team behind them as well. They absolutely know how to win a world championship, which they did last year, both of them. And I think that they will, as part of this development race this season, they'll be back in the hunt. Red Bull, I'm not so convinced are as far up as we have seen them. I think you could probably put Max Verstappen in Benny's higher car and he'd still finish on the podium. I think that's just Max Verstappen. But it's interesting with McLaren to see how they respond
Yellow flag out on track. Yeah, it was lingering for a while, and it's the Aston Martin, and it's Lance Stroll who is found reverse. He's run out deep. I think that's at turn 17. So the last big hairpin before you come into the pit lane entry, and he's got that back going again, but it's rather ruined pretty much everybody's lap. They're either gearing up or they were coming to the end of a lap. So
including his teammate, Harry.
Was it Alonso affected as well?
Yes.
So he won't be too happy about that either. But yellow flag's now gone in. So Charles Leclerc, who was fastest of anybody in that first sector, personal best in the middle, hasn't had to lift off, goes fastest with a 1:29.290. Just over 6 minutes left on the clock. Everybody out there on the mandatory new medium tyres. That will be the case in SQ1 and SQ2 before we get to the soft tyres in SQ3. Jenny.
Yeah, so many upgrades, and you were talking about McLaren. They were and are a customer team, so I think it was always going to be hard for them to come out of the box fighting against the likes of Mercedes, who have their own works team. But actually, let's see what they can do this weekend. They've bought a raft of upgrades. They'll bring another raft next time out. So 7 upgrades in their package and 11 for Ferrari.
There is a whole host of upgrades indeed, but with already just 5.5 minutes left of this first part of sprint qualifying. Leclerc has the fastest time, a 1:29.290. Kimi Antonelli second, a 1:29.3. Then it's Hamilton. Verstappen crosses the line in fourth. Gasly in the Alpine is up in fifth. George Russell's first effort, sixth. Behrman, Perez and Ocon, the 9 drivers to have set a lap time. Remember, we had that yellow flag for Lance Stroll, who was stopped for a fair while, so that would have affected everybody out there in their first runs. So we'll have to have another go at it as Hülkenberg crosses the line now, as the sun beats off of his silver Audi, and there he will put himself up inside the top 7. Is his teammate Gabriel Bortoleto ahead of Ollie Behrman, Sainz and Hadjar, the top 10. Hot out there, air temperature 30.6 degrees, track temperature 53.8 degrees as well, humidity over 50%. So tough, challenging conditions out there on track.
It's about 5 degrees in this commentary box, isn't it? Producer Paddy likes to keep it cold. Traffic is going to be an issue, I think. We've seen how busy it is in FP1. They were all complaining about trying to find a gap, getting a bit of space, cars getting in their way. We've heard all the radio messages of the drivers moaning about other drivers, and actually we're now seeing it during the sprint race, and these are shortened sessions from what we normally see on a Saturday qualifying, so they don't have a lot of time. They'll get 2 runs in each probably, so anyone who's in the elimination zone is going to need to get a bit of a wriggle on. Yeah,
there was a bit of a pattern, it would seem, in first practice, and it's been reconditioned, if you like, here as well. Antonelli was quicker than Russell, and he is again, although Russell seems to have had a problem on his first run because he's more than a second behind. Hamilton, after a good start to the season, he's been slower than Leclerc in the first session, and he's slower again on this first run. Lando Norris is on an extremely good lap, and this is the first time we've seen what the new McLaren, the upgraded McLaren, the first of 2 consecutive upgrades in 2 consecutive races, including this one in Montreal in 2 weeks' time, before we see what this McLaren can do.
It is a fastest first sector for Lando Norris, going well in the middle sector as well. He's quicker than his teammate Piastri in the first sector. as we hear the sounds of Lando Norris making his way over the elevation change down at the chicane of 14 and 15 before he sets himself up down that long 1.2 kilometre back straight. Straight line mode activates. That's the front wing and the rear wing flaps opening, reducing the drag and giving extra speed in a straight line before they close up under braking. He turns it into the hairpin at turn 17, feathers the throttle, arcs it left, curves it right round the final corner. The line awaits for Lando Norris. Fastest in the first and middle sectors, personal best in the final sector, puts him over half a second clear at the top from Charles Leclerc. Can Piastri find time as well? He does. It's McLaren 1 and 2, but Piastri 4/10 adrift from his teammate.
Now Stroll's in the garage. He's obviously had some kind of problem, and that's probably what looks like what happened to him. He did have the lights, the warning lights flashing on his steering wheel. We saw in a replay when he was in the runoff area there at what's effectively the last corner, even though there's a kink after it, Harry. Interesting that from the McLaren, isn't it? Now they've taken a bit longer to build up to that lap. What does that say we're going to see over the next 2 or 3 minutes about what that in terms of their relative pace compared to the Ferraris and the Mercedes? But very, very promising, Beck, early indications from that upgraded McLaren there on those first runs.
Yeah, I'm here for McLaren being in the fight. That's great if they can really take it to Mercedes. I don't feel like we really saw this pace in FP1 from McLaren, but the Ferraris were looking quite strong. McLaren, I mean, I do not like this word, but I'm going to go with it. A bit of sandbagging maybe from McLaren in FP1.
No, surely not.
Surely not. No team would ever do that. But yeah, very impressive. That was an absolutely millimetre perfect lap from Norris.
Yeah, and a couple of things to say on that front. This is the race where 3 years ago, if I've got my maths right, no, 2 years ago, where McLaren became true contenders for the first time with a very big, significant upgrade on their car. And since then, their record of upgrades has been absolutely unimpeachable. Every single time they brought one, it's delivered performance. Andrea Stella, the team principal, has been talking about a completely new car between from when they left Japan to when they arrive in Montreal in 2 weeks' time. So this is the first sort of half a step, if you like, towards that completely new car. Can they really have made this step forward and become competitors with Mercedes at the very front? We're going to find out.
Closing stages of SQ1. At risk right now is Alex Albon, who's just been demoted into that bottom six after a good lap from Franco Colapinto. Albon, Bottas in 18th. Lindblad, who really struggled in the first and only practice session earlier on today. He's on and out. He's on his personal best at the moment in the first sector and in the middle, and at the moment up on time to get himself in that top 16. Alonso behind him without a competitive lap time on the board, but he is out there right now. Liam Lawson as well, the two Racing Bulls, both at risk here. Lance Stroll out of the session, so he will start last. Lawson crosses the line, the Kiwi in the Racing Bulls, and puts it 13th ahead of Isaac Hadjar in the Red Bull, who's struggling in that second Red Bull alongside Max Verstappen. Lindblad puts himself up into 12th. Hulkenberg's right on the bubble. Ocon can't make it out. He has to settle for 17th. Meanwhile, his teammate Ollie Behrman is up inside the top 10. Setting purple sectors is Fernando Alonso in the middle sector. How's he done that? I know, I got ahead of myself. Harry. One mini sector. Meanwhile, setting purple sectors, George Russell, a full purple sector from him in the final sector. Takes the flag, though, which is out in 6th. Better lap from Hadjar, puts himself up into 9th. That puts Ocon down. Hulkenberg's at risk, but he does the lap just in time and gets that Audi up into 9th. Meanwhile, Liam Lawson now becomes at risk. Can Alex Albon find anything? He's still on a final lap and could put Liam Lawson out here. Alonso looks resigned to being out, but where will this place him once he finishes the final sector? Perez comes into the pits from 18th. Bottas won't improve in the other Cadillac. He stays 20th. Gabriel Bortoleso's down in 13th. He'll be safely through, but it's Alex Albon who is vying for a place in SQ2. His teammate Sainz is up in 15th. Albon, though, down on time in the middle sector. He needs a mighty final sector, and he gets it just and puts himself up into 16th at the expense of Liam Lawson right at the close of this first part of sprint qualifying ahead of the Miami Grand Prix on Sunday. Out of SQ1 is Liam Lawson's Racing Bulls, the Haas of Esteban Ocon, Sergio Perez's Cadillac, his teammate Valtteri Bottas, and despite giving us a glimmer of hope with a very, very quick mini sector for Fernando Alonso. He bailed out of it at the end and didn't set a representative lap time. Lance Stroll, his teammate, retiring from this session with issues. And we've just seen where it all went wrong for the Frenchman Esteban Ocon in the Haas. Big lock-up right at the start of his lap, down into turn 1. His teammate, meanwhile, Ollie Bearman, up in 13th. So the big losers there, Liam Lawson and Esteban Ocon, being knocked out of SQ1, along with Perez 19th, Bottas 20th, Alonso and Stroll right at the back.
And we've just seen Alonso in a replay going off at turn 11. I wonder if that purple mini sector was because he didn't brake early enough for that corner. I don't know. But we'll have to look into the data on that and see how that happened. But he obviously made a mistake. He's ended up 12 seconds off the pace. I don't know where the Aston Martin would be without that error, because he didn't get another lap in. We're not going to know till tomorrow.
We won't indeed, but at least they managed to get some laps out there, because they were hindered by power issues during practice, which really prevented them from getting much run time out on the board, and they were the only team's garage to be affected by that. Right, you're listening to coverage of the Miami Sprint qualifying session. We just had the first part of it and the slowest 6 knocked out. We'll head into SQ2 momentarily to eliminate the next slowest 6 drivers. Right here on 5 Live, you can listen to us till 10 p.m. That's when Stephen Nolan will be here. And for the cool kids who want to follow us, we'll head over to Sports Extra 3 at 10 o'clock for the conclusion of this sprint qualifying. Right, grandstands full, sun beating down. I hope they've all got their sun cream on. I've got the Factor 50 on, and I'm ready for a bit of SQ2. But I suppose, Beck, one of the big losers from that are, I suppose, Lawson and Ocon, both out-qualified by their teammates.
Yeah, Lawson actually spent a lot of that session complaining about vibrations, saying they were really, really bad. So I'm not sure what's wrong with the car there. I think the big loser is actually Aston Martin, because they don't appear to have made any inroads on their problems in the gap that we've had. It's been a bad month for them. I mean, it's been a bad few months for them. Oh, radio from Lawson.
E17, Liam.
Oh, mate, I can't brake for any of the corners. I'm braking thoroughly. Just send me a queue next time.
So Liam Lawson there, not happy with the feel of his racing balls in the corners and the braking zones, and I don't think happy with where he was sent out in the queue that they form at the start of qualifying to try and get the best positions. So understandable frustrations for Liam Lawson, who has scored points in the first 3 rounds. Never scored a point in Miami, but hasn't actually raced it all that often. But Arvid Lindblad, who really struggled in practice, has managed to get through, finished that session in 14th. Right, while we wait for SQ2 to get started, it might be worth just touching on some of the other stories that have been brewing before this weekend. And one of them is the continued questions around Max Verstappen and his future. We are now seeing and witnessing what the tweaks to the regulations are doing in sprint qualifying and qualifying in general, trying to make laps more flat out. Is that enough to quench Max Verstappen's thirst?
The tickling that they've done, as it were. There's been a lot of news over the break. One of the big bits of news was that GP, Max's race engineer, will be leaving Red Bull when his contract expires next year, and he will be on his way to McLaren. Max was asked about this at the media day yesterday. He insists that his decision to stay or go has nothing to do with GP leaving him. I don't fully buy into that, if I'm totally honest. That relationship between race engineer and driver is unbelievably important. You cannot understate how important that relationship is. I don't think it will be the be all and end all. I think the biggest thing will be, 1, his enjoyment, but 2, if Red Bull can actually give him a competitive car. That's all he really wants. But how many times have we heard from drivers that I'm not happy? Lewis Hamilton spent the entirety of the last regulations, the ground effect cars, unhappy, complaining, moaning. He obviously wants that 8th World Championship that he thinks was taken from him in 2021. He's told us all a million times that he wasn't going to race when he was 40. He's 41 now. They just go through these phases, don't they, Benny, these drivers? It sort of comes in cycles where they moan a little bit. And, OK, there's a lot of money on the line here. If it all goes in his favour, he's taking home $100 million a year. And that is an absolutely enormous sum of money. And one of the things drivers realise when they leave F1 and then decide to come back is there's no other place on earth where they can earn that kind of money. And there is something that's quite addictive about this sport. So I don't think he'll actually leave.
Well, you know, Max Verstappen is a racing driver through and through. That's what he wanted to do, drive racing cars. And he definitely has genuine and understandable complaints about the new rules. Basically, everybody in the sport realises that they've messed these rules up. And if they could turn back the clock 2 or 3 years and have another go at getting them more right, they would do. Lots of lessons have been learned. So I think that's one thing. The other thing is, does that necessarily mean he's going to quit F1? If you're going to be driving a racing car, why not drive the fastest and best racing car you can for the most money you can earn? And the only place Max Verstappen can do that is Formula One. And as he's proving this year, he might love driving the Nordschleife in a GT car, but he can do that anyway and carry on driving in Formula One. So I think in the end, you're right. I think also, because of what I was saying about the rules, because of everybody accepting, the team bosses, the FIA, Formula One, even if they're not admitting it publicly, accepting that something is very much not right, they are working very much on changes for next year and looking forward to 2030, 2031, the next set of engine regulations. I think we'll find out quite soon the direction of travel for next year. And there are levers that Formula One can pull to change the rules sufficiently for next year to answer most of Max Verstappen's complaints. I think if they do that, there'd be no reason for him to stop.
I don't think he'll leave F1, but I think it's very possible he could leave Red Bull. Like you say, he just wants the fastest car under him.
Yes. Now, we're seeing them go out for the start of Q2, by the way, so I'll wrap this up as quick as I can. But, I mean, and the thing about contracts in Formula One is that they're not worth the paper they're written on, basically. They can always be resolved. But, having said that, it's not immediately obvious where he can go. Russell and Antonelli are locked in at Mercedes. Piastri and Norris are locked in at McLaren. Hamilton and Leclerc are locked in at Ferrari. Is he going to want to move to Aston Martin in place of Fernando Alonso? I doubt that very much, given the state Aston Martin are in at the moment. Why would you leave Red Bull to go anywhere else other than the top 3 teams? Of course, you can turn around, Beck, and I can see the look in your eye, and say, which team wouldn't take Max Verstappen?
Toto Wolff absolutely would bring him over to Mercedes in a heartbeat.
In theory. But I don't think it's going to happen. That's just my view.
Well, we'll see what happens. But right now, let's turn our attention to the second part of sprint qualifying, which is underway. 7 minutes and 35 seconds on the clock. No waiting around, and all desperate to get out in the pit lane. Indeed, a bit of close drama between Max Verstappen and Pierre Gasly, and Gasly not quite on it in getting out into the fast lane, and Max Verstappen just squeezing his Red Bull in front of the Frenchman's Alpine to get himself a head start heading out onto this Miami International Autodrome. Just over 5.4 kilometers, 19 turns that wind their way around the Miami Dolphins NFL Stadium. You head down that start-finish straight, and then you get into a series of left-right sweepers, a series of 2 that begins with a right-hander down at turn 1. You're curving your way through sector 1, and you then bend round through turn 6 and 7, an ever-tightening left-hander, which then sends you on your way down and almost straight. It's got a few kinks in it. It kinks slightly to the right, then to the left, then right, then left again, down all the way, 1.2 kilometers in length, to the first heavy braking zone at turn 11, where it concertinas up to the left, then you bend round to the right before you get a bit of an elevation change coming through the quick chicane, left, right, 14 and 15. Carry as much speed as you can through a 90-degree left-hander of turn 16, and you head down the back straight again, just over a kilometre in length, before another heavy braking zone, the hairpin down at turn 17. A common theme of lockups round there, and then you sweep your way gently left, then right through 19 corners, and that is a lap of this Miami International Autodrome. And right now, George Russell has the fastest lap time in the Mercedes. Everybody out there on the medium tyre, but that might quickly be undone. Max Verstappen to the line, fastest of anybody in the middle sector, but ends up second, just under 2/10 adrift from George Russell. Antonelli is third, Hadjar fourth, as Gasly slots up into fifth, but Charles Leclerc is running well, fastest of anybody in the first sector, topped practice earlier on today. The Ferrari looks quick and he goes to the top by over 0.4 of a second. What can his teammate Lewis Hamilton do? Has looked a little off the pace compared to his teammate, and that trend continues. 0.3 adrift, but it's enough for second. Meanwhile, the sounds of Oscar Piastri, fastest of anybody in the middle sector. A podium last time out in Japan to kickstart his 2026 campaign after not even starting the first 2 races. He sweeps his way left, then right again. What can the Australian do? 36 thousandths of a second adrift from the top spot. Has to settle for second, but a reminder, this is just the second part of sprint qualifying. We look to eliminate the slowest 6 drivers from 11th down to 16th. And right now, still waiting for times from Ollie Behrman and Arvid Lindblad. They haven't got a time on the board in that elimination zone yet to come out of the pit lane.
Well, Harry, that's a very interesting first set of laps. First of all, the Mercedes drivers, Russell was 0.3 quicker than Antonelli, but I saw Antonelli have a big wobble out of the last corner, and he's also come on the radio to complain about locking his front brakes. But they've been eclipsed by the McLaren of Oscar Piastri and the 2 Ferraris of Leclerc and Hamilton. And I just want to throw something out there. Mercedes in recent years have not been that good when the temperature's gone up. They've tended to overuse their tyres, and this is the hottest race of the year. It will be one of the hottest races of the year. It's 31, 32 degrees. It's going to be 35 tomorrow, apparently. Is that affecting their performance?
Yes, absolutely, very possible. I mean, that's something that's plagued them for years, isn't it? They've never seemed to be able to get that to work. I mean, they had Lewis Hamilton at the helm, and he is the tyre whisperer, isn't he? So he somehow always managed to get it to work for them. But they do not like the warm temperatures at all.
It's one of those really curious things about Formula One. Teams, basically, they have a DNA to their cars, and no matter the regulation set, no matter how many times the regulation changes, no matter how many developments they put on the car, something about them means that DNA just stays there. And Mercedes in hot weather is one of those things. McLaren in a particular performance corner performance profile is still the same. Norris was saying about this year's car, it still feels like a McLaren, even though it's a completely different aerodynamic philosophy.
Do you think it's something to do with the design, development, the process, how it's done, how it comes together? It's obviously the same people who are working, mostly it's the same people working in the departments. It must be something to do with from cab drawing to production, or there must be something in it that means that process is how it gets to that final product, and that the DNA stays.
I can't answer the question because I don't know, and I don't know because I don't think the engineers know either. They just know that it's there, and you know that's what it is. And we'll have to see how it plays out this weekend. But at the moment, people were talking about, it doesn't look like the pecking order is going to change as a consequence of this 5-week break and all the upgrades that everyone's bringing. Actually, it really looks like it has so far. It is very early days. It's only sprint qualifying. Let's not forget they've got a sprint race tomorrow morning, and then after that they can change all the settings on the cars for Grand Prix qualifying. That could change things completely again. But right now, it does look like Mercedes' position of predominance has gone.
Just 2 minutes remaining of SQ2. It is Charles Leclerc who currently leads the way. Oscar Piastri second, Lewis Hamilton third. Let's head back to Ellen Road. Full time, Rob Law.
Leeds 3, Burnley 1. They're dancing in the stands at Ellen Road. Leeds move 9 points clear of the bottom 3. A huge step towards securing their Premier League status. Stack drilled home inside 10 minutes before Okafor and Calvert-Lewin gave the home side vital breathing space after the break. Already relegated Burnley had a goal ruled out by VAR for offside, but they did eventually get their consolation through Auna Chowner, and Leeds deserved a win, though they look likely to be playing in the Premier League again next season. The pressure is piled on Forest, West Ham and Spurs, who now play over the weekend. Leeds 3, Burnley 1.
Over in the Scottish Premiership, it's Livingston 2, Aberdeen 2 as well. Let's get to an update in the Rugby League. Back to Matt Newsom.
Yeah, Leeds Rhinos 34, Wakefield 22. They've just kept Wakefield at arm's length. And Mike Acevo, who as early as sin binned in this game, might well have been sent off on a different afternoon or evening. He scored his hat-trick. That's probably just taken this game away from Wakefield. 9.5 to go, 34-22.
Semi-finals in the Snooker World Championship. Let's head back to the Crucible. Jamie Broughton.
And we're watching John Higgins take on Sean Murphy. They're racing through the frames tonight, but no player has been able to dominate play and build a lead yet. Higgins made a 63 break to go 11-10 up, but Murphy then responded with a century to level at 11 all. We're now into frame 23, and Higgins is looking favourite to win it. He's made a 70 break and now has a 38-point lead with 35 left on the table, so Murphy needs a snooker. 17 is the target for victory.
Thank you very much. Right, just 10 seconds left of SQ2. At the moment in that elimination zone, Bortoleto, Hulkenberg, Albon, Sainz, Lindblad and Behrman. Charles Leclerc leading the way right now ahead of Piastri and Lewis Hamilton as the clock has chimed down to 0. We're going to finish up sprint qualifying over on 5 Sports Extra 3. Stephen Nolan is going to be on the way here on 5 Live. But first, it's time for your latest news. Charles Leclerc, a 1:28.333 at the line. He takes the checkered flag. Piastri in second in the pit lane. At risk right now is Bortoleto, Hulkenberg. Behrman's out of this one, down in 13th spot. He's taken the checkered flag. So too has Carlos Sainz. Gabriel Bortoleto's finding a bit of time here. Could he put Pierre Gasly down? Colapinto's done well in the other Alpine. At the moment, taking the flag in 8th. Lando Norris is down in 7th, and he might be bailing out of this lap. He's not had the most brilliant final lap, but he should be okay because Hulkenberg hasn't been able to improve. He takes the flag in 12th. Neither can his teammate Gabby Bortoleto, just misses out. Alex Albon not flying either. We're done here. Arvid Lindblad not improving too. Pierre Gasly just nicks through into SQ3. It's Bortoleto out for Audi, down in 11th. Nico Hulkenberg, 12th. Then comes Oliver Behrman in 13th in the Haas. Alex Albon's Williams, 14th, ahead of Carlos Sainz, his teammate, in 15th, with Arvid Lindblad, the British rookie, his first time here in Miami, down in 16th spot.
Now, they've just finished on the medium tyres. It looks like there was only one lap in those tyres. Hardly anyone's improved. I think no one's improved on that second run. Russell had a go. Bortoleto had a go just in front of him. They were nowhere near their original times. We've seen a conversation between Piastri and his engineer, where his engineer offered him another run. And he said, well, the tyre overheated really quickly on the first lap. Not a surprise in these temperatures. But now they're going on to the soft tyre. So, and I mean, SQ3 is always a one-lap session, basically. That's because of the truncated time. That's how sprint qualifying works. But it could mean that the performance, relative performance of the cars changes because how they behave on the medium tyre is not necessarily how they're going to behave on the soft tyre.
And that is the tyre they will go on to into SQ3 in a few moments' time. We bin the mediums and we put the fast red rubber on for the final part of SQ3 as we set the grid, the top 10, and find out who will take sprint pole in Miami. Right, bit of a breather for us in the commentary box. Jenny Gow, what have you got?
Well, it certainly won't be Fernando Alonso or Lance Stroll for Aston Martin. A sort of day for them in qualifying. They're out. Lance Stroll locked up and ruined his set of tyres, so he couldn't go back out again. As you say, only one lap really is worthy in these tyres. Science Radio.
Well, 3 steps behind where we should be every lap. And I'm not happy with this. Cannot be that after 1 hour and a half of practice we're still in this state.
A rather damning statement from Carlos Sainz. 3 steps back with every lap, with every corner. Cannot be in that state after an hour and a half of practice running. Jenny, Carlos Sainz not happy with his Williams team.
No, and they have done quite a lot of work on that Williams. They've come back lighter and a bit more nimble, but not enough for them to actually progress through. And him finishing 15th, I think he will be very glum. Karun Chandhok, stop knocking off the railing and making my... He's, every time he leans back, the railing kind of pings off and knocks me. But he's done it twice now. Let's see if he can do it a third time. Sorry. But also, I've spoken to Mercedes about the heat comment that you were giving. And I was just saying, is that a thing or is it not? And they have said that certainly with heat, it's in bad correlation. It's a thing of years past, like last year. More likely to be the upgrades that other teams have bought is really... proving that they're in a worse place than they were. However, they are sure that they haven't optimised their setups yet, so they're not getting the full beans out of their package. So let's see what this brings on in the last part, as you say, of qualifying, and maybe those soft tyres will be of an advantage and more friendly to Mercedes.
So interesting there from what Mercedes have told Jenny. So they're basically saying yes about the heat thing. It is a real thing. So thank you, Mercedes, for that. I don't buy that the upgrades on the other cars have caused this complete turnaround. Mercedes had basically at least a 0.3, perhaps 0.5 advantage in pure performance over the other cars over the first 3 races of the season. They're now 0.5 behind. That's a 1 second swing. That is just not credible. So yes, I'm sure Ferrari and McLaren have made a step forward with their upgrades in relation to Mercedes, who've not really brought anything new on their car. There are a couple of little tweaks to the bodywork, but not too much. But there must be something suboptimal about the Mercedes, and that setup remark that Jenny reflected there, I think is much more likely to be the sort of larger factor in what we're seeing so far in this qualifying session.
I would take this top 10 every day of the week. Charles Leclerc ended that session fastest, ahead of Oscar Piastri, Lewis Hamilton third, Russell fourth, Verstappen rounding out the top 5, Antonelli, Norris the top 7, Colapinto, Hadjar and Gasly the top 10.
Well, one of the things that's made the first 3 races interesting is that the Ferraris are getting great starts. So they're qualifying behind the Mercedes and jumping ahead of them, and then the Mercedes take a while to try and get back past them. If the Ferraris start at the front, that's
no one's
gone
got any
away,
hope,
hasn't it? So.
But it's going to be colder on Sunday, so Mercedes do have a chance to come back into it. And as you mentioned earlier, Andrew, about how Antonelli's had terrible starts and he loses about 5 or 6 places every time he starts a race, and it doesn't really matter because he manages to fight his way back, and in some cases, well, in 2 cases, to win. So it would be so fascinating to see what actually happens on Sunday. I very much doubt Mercedes are panicking right now at all. It feels very much like they've gone, no, don't look over here, look over there. Like, no, it's not us, it's them.
Yeah.
And that's a very F1 thing to do, isn't it?
I mean, if Antonelli qualifies 6th, let's see what he does on these soft tyres in SQ3. But if he qualifies 6th and then makes a bad start, then he's not winning the sprint, that's for sure, even in a Mercedes at its best.
So we're going to have 2 Alpines, fair effort from Franco Colapinto in that session, 2 Red Bulls, Hadjar, who has been lagging behind teammate Verstappen all weekend long, but does nick through into Q3, the 2 McLarens, Norris and Piastri, the 2 Mercedes, Russell and Antonelli, and the 2 Ferraris of Leclerc and Hamilton as we set the grid for the second sprint of the year. And you can hear the sprint race on 5 Sports Extra on Saturday. 4:55 will be on air for ahead of the lights going out on that one at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And could be one to tune in for if we get a kind of grid like this. But as Andrew says, we're going to stick on the red-walled soft tyre, the quickest rubber of the lots. Everyone must use that in this final part of sprint qualifying, which is underway. 7 minutes and 23, 22, 21 seconds on the clock, but nobody in a mad rush to get out, so we'll head to Jenny Gow.
And I'm just wondering how Alan McNeish might be feeling watching that from the pit wall with Audi. And Bortolato finishing 11th, Hulkenberg 12th. Those are his 2 drivers. Now he's got his new role at the team. And I think he'll be disappointed not to get into the final part of qualifying with the team. But I think pleased as well. What do you think?
Well, I would actually say maybe they are pleased because they're ahead of the Hasses, they're ahead of the Williams, the Racing Bulls. They're just behind the Alpines, which I don't think they'll be too happy about. But I think Audi have made gains here, actually, in terms of that midfield pecking order. Perhaps the upgrades paying dividends for them.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I actually want to talk about Alpine because they've been really impressive this season. And I want to ask a very quick question to Andrew about Colapinto because we were talking about the driver market earlier, weren't we? And Benny wasn't entirely convinced Colapinto would see out the season. So my question is, what do you think he has to do to keep that seat safe, other than the absolute bucket loads of money that he brings in with him?
So while I'm talking to you, I'll try and look at my stats, which won't be easy. But he needs to get closer to Gasly, basically. So at the moment, his average qualifying deficit to Gasly is 7/10. Not good enough by any stretch of the imagination.
Biggest gap in the field, I think. As well.
Yeah, the Stroll-Alonso gap's in that region, but yeah, it's around about that. Yeah, so he's got to do better than that, basically. he needs to justify the fact that he's a good Formula 1 driver, which at the moment he hasn't done. So that
decent qualifying session
today. On this day, one sprint qualifying session does not make a season or a summer.
But he had a good Chinese Grand Prix as well, but he's got to do it consistently, hasn't he? And at the moment, I think that's the thing that is causing frustration for Alpine, is he's up and down.
And you're both right. You did the sort of finger rubbing thing earlier in the practice commentary about money. The money, of course, is an important factor, but there are plenty of talented drivers out there with money as well. And let's not forget, Alpine have got a couple of people in their academy, including the Irishman Alex Dunn, who looked very good in F2 last year, fell out with McLaren in strange circumstances, which we don't need to go into. He's going to do...
If you want to know, buy Benny a pint.
Yeah, I do know the reasons, but I'm not going to talk about them now. But, you know, if he's going to do some tests to see where he is, he doesn't have any money, Alex Dunn, so he's not going to beat Colapinto to the seat on that basis. But there are options out there.
But he's
quick. He appeared to be quick. We'll have to see.
Well, tyre warmers coming off as Alpine get ready to send their two drivers out, Franco Colapinto and Pierre Gasly. So too down at Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc being sent out on those shiny red soft tyres. And with these temperatures, you're not going to be able to get much of a go here. If you make a mistake, if there's a yellow flag on that one lap, you might lose a lot of time, and your chance of setting a competitive lap time could well be a one-lap shootout, which is what we want. That makes it exciting. Let's see, 10 cars in the field, the 2 Ferraris, the 2 McLarens, the 2 Mercedes, the 2 Red Bulls, and the 2 Alpines. It is 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 and 4 minutes. And counting on the clock, we're about to find out who will be on sprint pole in Miami. Temperatures high, 30 degrees air temperature, track temperature just dipping under 50 degrees now, humidity rising, over 54% humidity. Let's see what our top 10 have in them. Is it a fight between Mercedes, Ferrari and McLaren? What can Max Verstappen in the Red Bull do? Majority of teams bringing a huge raft of upgrades here, but so far for the championship leaders in Kimi Antonelli, George Russell and the Mercedes team, they've not been exactly dominating so far here in Miami, with just the one practice session under our belts as we gear up for a one-lap shootout with George Russell weaving left, weaving right, down that long back straight, 1.2 kilometers in length. Crucial moment to get your tyres prepared. Temperature can drop off too much if you can't keep them within the window, get too high, and either way you'll find yourself potentially locking up down into turn 1, which we've seen so often from drivers up and down the field. Here we go then for George Russell, the man who sits second in the Drivers' Championship. Slams on the brakes, turns it in for corner number 1 as he then sweeps his way gently left, gently right through turns 2 and 3. It's a double sequence as he does it again through 4 left, 5 right, and then a bending left-hander and an ever-tightening corner towards turn 8. Carry as much speed as you can. Good chance to try and save a bit of energy through the corner and then deploy it down the next 1.2 kilometers straight that takes you to a braking zone, a heavy braking zone. Another crucial chance to fill up their battery, give themselves a bit of a boost down the next back straight. George Russell braking for turn 11, swings it in left. Then it bends back around towards turn 12. It concertinas up, threads his way through the barriers, left and right, up and over the chicane at turns 14 and 15. The 90-degree left-hander beckons of turn number 16, setting himself back up for that long dash down the back straight. He's quick at the moment. Our others going quicker. They're all out there. Hamilton looking good in the first sector. So too is Charles Leclerc. Russell with a great middle sector at the moment. Can he hold it all together as he breaks to the hairpin at turn 17? Just 2 more corners to go for George Russell. Swings left, swings right. The sun shines off the Silver Arrow Mercedes. Russell with the first lap time on the board goes to the top, a 1:28.493. Can Can he stay there? Lando Norris, fastest of anybody in the middle sector. Charles Leclerc has the fastest first sector. It's his teammate Hamilton who crosses the line first, though, up into second. Can't pip his former teammate. The sounds of the McLaren. Lando Norris 0.6 of a second quicker than George Russell's Mercedes. Norris goes to the top on provisional sprint pole. But what about Charles Leclerc? What about Max Verstappen and Oscar Piastri too? Leclerc, who's looked quick out the blocks, can only get so close. Almost 0.4 back from Norris. It's second place right now for the Monegasque in the Ferrari. Russell third, Hamilton fourth. Gasly slots himself up into fifth. Max Verstappen nearly 0.7 down on Lando Norris, vying for fourth at the moment. Franco Colapinto 0.2 quicker than his teammate. The Argentine driver currently sits in fifth. But we've got Verstappen, Piastri and Kimi Antonelli still to go. So too for Isaac Hadjar. Can they throw a spanner in the mix? Max Verstappen first of all. And what a final sector from Verstappen. He salvages the lap, but he still ends up over half a second down. It's third for Max Verstappen. Can Oscar Piastri pip in one place more? Yes, he can. Piastri up into second. It's a McLaren front row lockout ahead of the Miami Sprint with only Kimi Antonelli left to upset the apple cart. The young Italian who leads the Drivers' Championship, the youngest ever to do so, who took sprint pole here last year in fantastic fashion, is fastest of anybody in the middle sector, into the hairpin, the left-hander of turn 17, swings left, swings right, over 260 kilometers an hour, up to 270, he splits the McLarens. It's not going to be pole, it will be second for Antonelli, but it will be sprint pole for Lando Norris and McLaren, 0.2 clear of Kimi Antonelli, with Oscar Piastri in third.
Wow, McLaren done it again with these upgrades. That's astonishing. 0.2, first time anyone's beaten Mercedes to pole position this year. Outstanding performance by McLaren and Lando Norris, and Kimi Antonelli quite a long way, 0.4 quicker than George Russell. I wonder if Russell will rue going out first when the conditions are not at their best and leaving Antonelli to go out absolutely last for his lap.
That was utterly superb from Norris, wasn't it? It's like we know what we were talking about, Benny. We said McLaren were good with their upgrades.
What a superb end to sprint qualifying. Charles Leclerc will be disappointed with fourth. He was in the hunt today for sprint pole. Where did he make the mistake? We're seeing a replay now on his lap for Charles Leclerc in his Ferrari. Did he just get the rear end stepping out on him slightly, lost grip in the middle part of the lap, and that was enough to lose places to Norris, Antonelli and Piastri. They're your top three. Then comes Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen in fifth, ahead of George Russell. Lewis Hamilton disappointed with seventh. I think elated will be Franco Colapinto in eighth for Alpine. Out-qualifies his teammate Pierre Gasly by a couple of tenths. That's the most convincing I've seen Franco Colapinto in a qualifying session in his career. Isaac Hadjar will be disappointed in the second Red Bull, down in ninth after such a strong start to his season at Red Bull, faring against Max Verstappen. Gasly once again gets his Alpine inside the top 10. And that's just sprint qualifying. We've still got Grand Prix qualifying to go.
Breathe, Harry, breathe. That was really exciting.
It was, as Oscar Piastri pulls up into the Parc Fermé spot, takes his steering wheel out. Lando Norris already out of the car. This could be tasty for the sprint race tomorrow, which you'll hear on 5 Sports Extra, lights out from 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And it will be the McLaren leading the way. But that is, once again, another example of upgrades and the race off the track in Formula One. And right now, McLaren showing that they are the masters of it once again. Soaking it all up down there. Jenny Gow, what can you see?
Yeah, one of Lando's management team has just walked past me and absolutely delighted. I think, okay, this is just qualifying, but the signs are good. The race is back on, let's put it like that.
The race is back on. McLaren improving. Mercedes still in there, but now with a few more contenders to look at alongside Charles Leclerc and the Ferrari. There was more in there for Ferrari today. There was more in there for Charles Leclerc today. But fourth still reasonable, and we know how quick they are off those starts. Leclerc could play a huge factor into turn 1.
Oh, the start tomorrow is going to be absolutely brilliant. You are tuning in, aren't you? No matter where you are, make an effort to tune in, because it's going to be utterly brilliant.
You're not going to know where to look.
I know.
There's going to be action all throughout.
Going to keep you busy.
Ooh, looking forward to it. Max Verstappen out of the car, not looking too happy, not looking too sad. 5th place, middle of the road. And Isaac Hadjar, though, down in 9th. What's the gap between them? 1:28.4 for Max Verstappen. Let's hear, though, from our pole sitter.
We are here with your sprint pole sitter, Lando Norris. Lando, you seem to like Miami a little bit. That was a pretty impressive run.
Yeah, was great. Perfect result for us. Nice way to reward the team. You know, we got a lot of new upgrades on the car, so it's nice to feel some grip again, and nice to reward the guys and the girls that have put a lot of work into this. So, no, I've always loved Miami, honestly, both on and off the track. So it's a good result for us. Of course, just the beginning of the weekend, you know, still a long way to go, but nice to tick it off by doing this.
It's got to be nice to see that those upgrades really worked. I mean, we know you brought a lot to Miami, but the gap to Mercedes in those first few rounds was pretty big. Were you expecting to make this much gain on the Mercedes team?
I mean, it's tough to know. Every track's different, right? So we've known that this track has always been good to us. But we knew that what we were bringing was going to hopefully do a good step, and it has. So it's nice that, yeah, our estimations are proved correct, and the team deserved that. They put a lot of work into all of these things, you know. But since the first lap today, I felt comfortable, and I was like, oh, I got a bit of rear grip, and I felt good. So I've always felt good around here, and it's always good to do it. So good to start the weekend with the pole.
Let's talk about the lap a little bit, because we heard a lot of drivers talking about tire temperatures. How difficult was it to kind of control them, get them prepped in the right way, and then keep the tires alive over the whole lap?
It was pretty tough. I mean, my Q2 was pretty woeful. I was like 1 second off, so you know, it didn't fill me with confidence into the final run, and I was debating whether we do 1 lap, 2 laps. Will pushed me and said, Lando, we're doing 1 lap, and it paid off, you know. So it's been good work from the whole team. We got everything in a good window straight away, so I'm very proud of them. But the lap was good. It was good apart from one corner, 16 onto the back straight. Completely missed it. Yeah, didn't want to get it today. So difficult conditions also with the wind. The wind can play a big effect, you know. So I'm just happy. I'm happy to be back here. It's been a little while, you know. So just a perfect way for me to start the weekend too.
Well, you've had success here in the past. Cheers, continuing. Mate. Best of luck tomorrow.
Will do. Cheers, dude.
Your sprint pole sitter Lando Norris speaking with James Hinchcliffe there after clinching pole for the sprint. Ahead of Kimi Antonelli and Oscar Piastri in 3rd. Leclerc, Verstappen the top 5. Russell in 6th ahead of Hamilton. Colapinto, Hadjar and Gasly making up the top 10. And what an intense final part of sprint qualifying that was. That just about does us for our coverage today. Thanks to Jenny Gow, thanks to Andrew Benson, Rebecca Clancy, Jolyon Palmer, and for your company throughout this session. If you want more checkered flag goodness, just head to BBC Sounds and search F1. We've got a full preview show on there, which is got some nice interviews on there, particularly from Arvid Lindblad. So have a look out for that. We will be back with the sprint race on Saturday. You can hear that on 5 Sports Extra. We'll be building up at 5 to 5 in the afternoon ahead of the lights out at 5 o'clock. Hope you can join us then. Lando Norris will start on pole for the sprint. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.